My story begins when I was 25 years old, living in my grandmother's old house in the suburbs. She had left it to me when she passed away. She was my dad's mom, a kind woman who always made sure I had what I needed. The house wasn't new or fancy, but it was strong and well cared for. It sat in a quiet neighborhood where you could actually hear birds singing in the morning. I'm Janice, and back then, my life felt simple. I had a good job, my own house, and what I believed was a loving family. My family included my mom, my stepdad, and my younger half-sister Jacqueline, who had just turned 19. They lived in a newer house closer to the city, but they still had a big mortgage that would take years to pay off. One Friday afternoon, while we were having our usual coffee together, my mom said, "Janice, honey, can we talk?" "You know," she continued, "your stepdad and I have been thinking, this house of yours is just what we've always wanted. It's so peaceful here, and there's a nice garden." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "And I know your commute to work is pretty long," she added. "Our house is much closer to your office." Then she shared her big idea. We should switch houses. They would move into my grandmother's house, and I would move into their city home. But I would keep paying their mortgage. "Just think about it," she said, looking excited. "You'd save so much time on the commute. The house is bigger and more modern. And your stepdad and I have always dreamed of living somewhere like this." I thought about it for a moment. She wasn't completely wrong. Their house did have a newer kitchen, more space, and the location would cut my travel time to work in half. "What about the paperwork?" I asked. "Shouldn't we put something in writing?" My mom waved her hand like it wasn't important. "Oh, honey," she said, "we're family. Why spend money on lawyers? You know I'd never do anything to hurt you." Not long after that, we made the switch. I got used to my new place pretty quickly. Every month, I sent my mom the mortgage payment, usually more than I had to because I wanted to help pay it off faster. I also spent money fixing up the house. I replaced old appliances and gave several rooms a fresh new look. That was our deal for 5 years. I never missed a payment and often gave extra when I could. Everything seemed great. I had a shorter commute, a newer home, and I thought I had a fair agreement with my family. Then I went on a business trip to a nearby state. It was just 3 weeks of meetings, presentations, and hotel stays. I was actually excited to get back and sleep in my own bed. The last thing I expected was to come home and find myself locked out of my own life. It was a chilly evening when my Uber dropped me off. I pulled my suitcase up the driveway and noticed something strange. The porch light was on, and I could hear voices inside. That was odd, since I lived alone and hadn't left any lights on. "What the hell?" I whispered, trying to unlock the door. My key didn't work. I tried again and again, but it still didn't fit. My confusion turned into panic. The locks had been changed. Just as I was about to call a locksmith, the door opened. My sister Jacqueline, now 23, was standing there, wearing my favorite fuzzy slippers. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Behind her, her new husband was stretched out on my couch, his feet on my coffee table. "Oh, you're back," Jacqueline said with a smirk, leaning against the doorframe. "Your stuff's in the garage." I stood there with my suitcase, shocked. "My stuff? What are you talking about? This is my house." "Not anymore," she said, checking her nails. "The kind our parents always paid for, even when they said they couldn't afford new clothes for me. Mom and Dad gave it to us as a wedding gift. We live here now." I felt like the ground had shifted under me. "Are you serious? I've been paying the mortgage on this house for 5 years." "Yeah, about that." Jacqueline rolled her eyes, looking just like Mom. When I asked Jacqueline what I was supposed to do, she didn't care at all. "That's not my problem," she said. "Mom and Dad gave us the house." Then she waved her hand, like she was pushing me away. "You need to leave. Get off our property before we call the police." I stood there on my own porch, suddenly without a place to live. Memories came rushing back, times when Jacqueline always got special treatment. She got a brand new iPhone while I still had a flip phone. She wore designer clothes while I got hand-me-downs. She got a car for her 17th birthday while I took the bus. Mom and Dad paid for her college, but I had to work my way through community college. Now I stood there shaking with anger while my little sister got ready to slam the door in my face. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. She shrugged. "Not my problem. Get a hotel or something. Just don't come back here." Then she slammed the door. I heard her and her husband laughing inside, making themselves comfortable in the house I had paid for and fixed up for 5 years. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't even remember the drive to my parents' house, my grandmother's house, the one I had given them when we switched. All I could think about was how this had always been the way things worked. Jacqueline always got what she wanted, and I was expected to accept it. But this time was different. This wasn't just about phone or clothes. This was my home, my life, everything I had worked for. I marched up to my old house, angry and ready to talk. The porch light cast long shadows on the garden I had cared for before the house swap. My hand was in a fist when I got to the door, and I knocked hard enough that it hurt. "Mom, open up. We need to talk about what Jacqueline just did." I heard movement inside, whispers, footsteps coming toward the door, but no one opened it. Then I heard my mom's voice through the door. It was muffled, but I could still hear her. "Go away, Janice." I froze. That couldn't be right. "Mom, open the door. Jacqueline just kicked me out of my house. The house I've been paying for." "That's not your house anymore," my stepdad said. "And this isn't your house either. This is our house now." The ground felt like it was falling out from under me. "What are you talking about? Grandma left this house to me. You need to leave," my mom said firmly, like she thought she was being calm and fair. "Go rent an apartment somewhere. Stop going from house to house and making everyone uncomfortable." I pressed my hands against the door, trying to stay calm. "Making you nervous? Are you serious? You kicked me out of my own house. Jacqueline is living in the home I've been paying for, and now you won't even let me in to talk about it." "We've put a lot into this house," Mom snapped. "We've made improvements, done renovations. And what about all the money I spent fixing up your house?" I shouted. I didn't care who heard me anymore. "The new appliances, the bathroom remodel, 5 years of mortgage payments. That's different," she said. "Different? How is it different, Mom? You planned this, didn't you? You had me pay your mortgage while you stayed in my house. Then you gave my place to Jacqueline and kept Grandma's house for yourselves. Great plan. Leave me with nothing while you split up everything I worked for." There was a pause. Then Mom's voice came back, cold and firm. "You need to leave now, Janice. This is our house. We don't want you here." Something inside me snapped. All the years I paid the mortgage, all the repairs, all the times Jacqueline got everything while I got nothing, it all became clear. "Actually, Mom, you're wrong about one thing," I said. My voice was calm now. "This is my house. Legally. The deed is still in my name. Grandma left it to me, remember? And since you're so good at kicking people out of houses, maybe it's time I return the favor." "You wouldn't dare," my stepdad growled. "Try me," I said. "I'm done being the nice one. I'm done letting you treat me like this. Get out of my house, or I'll have you evicted. Legally." Silence. No one answered. I waited a few seconds, then turned and walked away. I had nowhere to stay, but I knew what I needed to do. An hour later, I checked into a cheap hostel. My suitcase was still packed for my trip. I pulled out my phone and started looking for lawyers. The one I hired, Mr. Dillon, didn't waste time. Within 3 days, he had all the eviction papers ready. I stood beside him on the porch as he knocked on the door, firm and professional. This time, Mom opened it. Her face went pale when she saw the documents in his hand. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," he said. His voice was polite but serious. "I'm here on behalf of your daughter, Janice, the legal owner of this property." "I'm giving you an eviction notice," Mr. Dillon said. "You can't do this," my stepdad shouted, stepping up behind my mom, his face red with anger. Mr. Dillon stayed calm. "Actually, we can, and we are. You have 4 days to leave the property. If you don't, we'll call the police and take legal action." I stood quietly, watching my mom's face go from shocked to angry to scared. She tried to catch my eye, but I looked away. I was done letting her play with my emotions. "Janice, honey," she said in a sweet voice. "We can talk about this." "No," I said, cutting her off. "The time to talk was before you locked me out of my house and gave it to Jacqueline. You have 4 days, Mom. That's it." Those 4 days felt like forever. I stayed in my hostel, jumping every time my phone buzzed. But to my surprise, they actually followed the notice. On the 5th morning, Mr. Dillon called me. "They've moved out. The house is clear." When I arrived, they were loading the last boxes into a moving van. Mom stood in the driveway, her eyes red and puffy. "You're no daughter of mine," she whispered through her tears. "You're a traitor. After everything we've done for you." "Done for me?" I said with a bitter laugh. "You mean using me to pay your mortgage for 5 years while planning to steal my house?" "Yeah, thanks for that." She didn't reply. She just got into the car and slammed the door. I watched them drive away, the moving van following behind. And just like that, the driveway was empty again. My house was mine. Inside, the place was messy. Drawers were left open, things were scattered around, but nothing was badly damaged. I stood in my grandmother's living room, my living room now, and suddenly, everything became clear. I wasn't paying their mortgage anymore. They had broken our verbal deal the moment they kicked me out of the house I was paying for. Now they could deal with the fallout. I sat down in my grandmother's old rocking chair. I could almost feel her presence around me. And for the first time since all this started, I smiled. I kept thinking about all the money I had put into their house. New kitchen appliances, that pricey water heater, the bathroom remodel. I treated that house like it was mine, because I truly believed it would be one day. The worst part? I had paid the mortgage for years, always more than I had to, thinking I was building something for myself. I thought I was doing something smart for my future. By my math, there was only about $60,000 left to pay on the house. At the pace I was going, I would have paid it off in just 2 more years. I'd been so close. All that money, I whispered to the empty room. All those extra payments. Then a memory came back, one I had pushed aside before but now saw clearly. It was right after we swapped houses. Mom had been sitting at the kitchen table in her new home, stirring her coffee with that innocent look she always used when she wanted something. "Janice, honey," she said, "I've been thinking since we live here now, maybe you should transfer the house deed to us. Just to make it official. We'll sign our house over to you once the mortgage is paid off, of course." She had made it sound so simple, like it was just paperwork. But I'd had a better idea. "Why don't we do it the other way around?" I suggested. "You can put the mortgage in my name now, and I'll keep paying it officially. Then I'll sign Grandma's house over to you right away." I remembered how her face changed for a split second before she smiled again. I should have noticed it then. "Oh no," she said quickly. "That would be too complicated with the bank. It's better to wait until the mortgage is paid off. Then we can do a clean swap." Stepdad had jumped in too, nodding fast. "Much simpler that way, Janice. No need to bring in banks or lawyers. We're family." Now, sitting in my grandmother's old rocking chair, I could finally see the truth. They never planned to give me their house. They wanted both, their house and mine. If I had signed over Grandma's house like they wanted, a cold chill ran through me. I'd be completely homeless right now. No backup, no legal claim to any house. Just out on the street, while they enjoyed both homes. At least I was smart enough to keep this house in my name. It didn't make up for the money I'd lost, but it meant I still had a place to live. A roof they couldn't take from me. And, maybe most important of all, a lesson learned about trust. Even with family. Especially with family. For days after I missed the mortgage payment, my phone rang. I was sitting in Grandma's kitchen, drinking coffee, trying to figure out how to start over. Mom's name popped up on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but part of me wanted this moment. Maybe I needed it. "Where's the mortgage payment?" she snapped, not even saying hello. Her voice was sharp and full of attitude, like I was some renter who hadn't paid, not her daughter. "The bank is going to charge us late fees," she snapped. I let out a laugh that probably sounded a little crazy. "Are you seriously calling to ask me for money right now?" "Of course I am. You need to pay the mortgage." "Let me get this straight," I said, gripping my coffee mug so hard my knuckles turned white. You kicked me out of the house I've been paying for. You gave it to Jacqueline and her new husband. And now you still expect me to pay the mortgage? Are you out of your mind? That house belongs to Jacqueline. I cut her off. Then let Jacqueline pay for it. She's the one living there, right? In the house I fixed up. The house I've been paying for. Mom's voice went high and screechy, just like it always did when things didn't go her way. Jacqueline can't pay the mortgage. She just graduated college. She doesn't even have a job yet. They just had that beautiful wedding, and they're still settling in. Not my problem, I said, cutting her off again. I felt strangely calm. Not anymore. You gave her my house? Great. She can have the mortgage, too. There was a pause. Then Mom's voice changed. It got cold and threatening, the same way she used to talk when trying to guilt me as a kid. Fine. Then we'll just move back into your house. I actually laughed out loud, and it felt good. Like hell you will. Try it, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing. I already evicted you once. Want to go for round 2? You can't just stop paying. We had an agreement. Yeah, an agreement you broke when you gave my house to Jacqueline and her husband. And besides, isn't there only about $60,000 left on the mortgage? I was almost done paying it off. The silence that followed made my stomach twist. It was the kind of silence that comes right before something awful. Mom, it's more than that, she said, her voice small and guilty. How much more? There was a longer pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. About $160,000. The world tilted. My coffee mug slipped from my hand and hit the counter, thankfully not breaking. What? That's impossible. I've been paying extra for 5 years. Thousands of dollars over the required payments. How? I paused. What did you do with the extra money? I yelled so loud it echoed through the kitchen. What did you do with the money? The silence after that was heavy. Then my mom finally answered, and her words made my blood run cold. Oh, we paid the regular mortgage payments, she said, like it was no big deal. The extra money you sent, well, we had expenses. Expenses? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. What kind of expenses? Well, your stepdad and I needed a vacation after the stress of moving. We went to Europe, Lyon, Genoa, Palma. Beautiful places, she said, actually sighing like she was remembering a nice memory. Then there was Jacqueline's college. You know how expensive private universities are. And, of course, we had to fix up the house. I couldn't breathe. For years, I had sent extra money, thinking I was paying down the mortgage. But they had used it for trips and house upgrades. You stole from me, I said quietly. You took my money and went on vacation with it. Don't be so dramatic, Janice, Mom said. We're family. We just used the money where it was needed most. I couldn't listen anymore. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone. For the next hour, I just sat in my grandmother's rocking chair, shaking with rage and feeling completely betrayed. When I finally calmed down, I blocked all their numbers, Mom, Dad, and Jacqueline. I was done, but it wasn't over. 4 days later, they showed up at my door, banging and yelling like they still had some right to be there. Open this door right now, Mom shrieked. We need to talk about the mortgage payment. I stood quietly on the other side of the door. I didn't move. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I'm not paying another cent. You have to, my stepdad shouted, his voice full of anger. You're responsible for the payments. Actually, I'm not, I said, feeling stronger with the door between us. And I have bank records for every payment I made. I have texts and emails about our house swap. My lawyer says that's evidence of fraud. Silence. If you don't stop bothering me, I added, I'll take you to court. And trust me, I can handle a long, expensive legal fight way better than you can. Want to risk it? They left after that, but not before shouting some nasty words that would have made a sailor blush. I waited until I heard their car drive away before I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. A week later, my cousin Martha called. Janice, you might want to know, your parents are in trouble. They're behind on the mortgage. They've burned through all their savings, even their retirement money. And Jacqueline? She had a huge fight with them when they told her she needed to start paying the mortgage. Jacqueline had screamed that they promised her a free house, not a bunch of debt. The neighbors said they could hear her yelling from across the street. I hung up the phone and looked out the window at the garden. The irises my grandmother had planted were in full bloom, bright purple petals against the green leaves. She always used to say, "You reap what you sow." I wondered what my family would end up getting from the lies and betrayal they had planted. For months after I stopped paying the mortgage, I started hearing what was really going on. Word spread that my parents had finally shown Jacqueline their true selves. My cousin Madison called and said, "You won't believe this. They actually called the police on Jacqueline and her husband." Apparently, my parents told Jacqueline she had to start paying the mortgage or leave. When she refused, they showed up with 4 police officers and an eviction notice. Neighbors said Jacqueline was screaming about broken promises while she packed her things. But that was only the beginning. The phone calls kept coming, family members sharing more bits of the story. Aunt Sophia said they were asking everyone for loans. Uncle Walter told me they tried to refinance the mortgage, but they were denied. Cousin Sean mentioned they were even looking into reverse mortgages. Then came the call that really made things clear. It was Aunt Abigail, my mom's sister, the one who always knew everyone's business. "Did you know about the other loans?" she whispered. They took out personal loans to buy Jacqueline that fancy Mercedes for her graduation. And get this, they borrowed money to pay for her honeymoon. 3 full weeks in the Cayman Islands. They're drowning in debt. I sat with that for a while, thinking about all the times I had eaten ramen noodles just to save money for extra mortgage payments. All the things I gave up to help. The final piece came from my friend Sophia, who works at the bank. We were having coffee when she leaned across the table, looking serious. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," she said, "but the bank sent your parents a demand letter last week. They're 4 months behind on the mortgage." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Let me guess, they're about to lose the house?" She nodded. "If they don't come up with the money soon, the bank will foreclose." I knew what would happen next. They'd come to my door crying, saying sorry, begging for help. They'd promise to change, promise to fix things. Mom would probably even bring one of her apple pies, just like she did the first time she asked to swap houses. But I was done. Done being their bank. Done watching them give everything to Jacqueline. Done letting them control me. They made their choices: multiple mortgages, personal loans, fancy trips, and expensive cars. Now they could deal with the results. I looked around my grandmother's house, my house. The strong walls, the blooming garden. She left it to me because she wanted me to have a stable future, not so I could clean up my parents' mess. "They're going to lose everything," Aunt Abigail had said during our last phone call. "Aren't you going to help them?" I thought about those 5 years I spent paying their mortgage while they were on vacations. I thought about being locked out of my house, about my things thrown in the garage, about Jacqueline living in the home I paid for. "No," I said at last. "I'm not." Sometimes the hardest lesson in life is realizing you can't help people who don't want to help themselves. My parents had made their choices. Now they had to deal with them. As for me, I had my own life to live, in my own house, with my own future ahead. And this time, I wasn't sharing.